here, right? So sometimes, rather than, let's say, for example, now we want to talk about this, which is the Google Docs. So rather than having to click on https://docs.google.com, all you need to do is, because you have a Google account, you are entitled to the tools in here. And you can see this is where the Google Docs is. This is the Google Docs in here. So you are entitled to it, right? So I can just decide to click on this and it's going to take me to a new tab, but it's going to definitely open the Google Docs for me, right? And usually when you are having a new account, your Google Docs would be empty, right? Your Google Docs will be empty because you don't have any document on it, right? So again, remember that by you having a Google account, you actually have access to all the Google tools, whether they are paid or they are not paid. You have the access to the marketplace, right? And I still know that there are certain people that go to the cafe, as crazy as it is, that go to cafe at this time. They even do not have an email, so they go to cafes to actually have one. So first thing first, remember we talked about how Google Docs helps you to document your it helps you just to get it to write documents, your CVs, your proposals and all that. So again, remember I said that now this Google Docs represents um this Google Docs actually represent Microsoft Word, right? So, and I told you that Microsoft Word in this case is usually the offline version of this, right? And when you don't even have resources, maybe on your phone or laptop, it is much more preferable that you use your Google Doc account and have all your documents, so that even if once you log in with this email account, you'll be able to have access to all your documents, right? You are able to have access to your documents. So the first ribbon that we have in here is the ribbon that allows you to give it a title. So your project 20k or whatever the title is, you rename it, because usually it comes as an untitled document. So it's usually an untitled document. So I just want to show you how good this, how it comes as an untitled document. So I can just say, I can give it a name, test one, and that is it. So then on this part of the ribbon is where you have when it was last edited, right? So when it was last edited, you'll be able to see versions of this. Now, especially when there are certain times when I'm working on a document and I have to share it maybe to my assistant. Now, my assistant will be able to make edits on this document, and when I come in here, I'll be able to see all the versions of the document she has edited, and I'll be able to know at what point, what did she change at every point, right? As long as I have access to this document, I'll be able to see all of this, right? Then the next thing is you actually have where people make comments. So when you make some certain inputs on documents, right, on a document, let's say you make some inputs on it, you can add a comment in regards to this. So I can say this is test one. Now, most especially, let's say you are writing a project topic for somebody, or you know that the way they highlight projects, so you can decide to highlight this and give it a comment. So you can see that I decided to give it a comment called the test one, right? So I gave it a comment. You can see this is the comment in here. So it is under this tab, but it actually has a comment. So when you are working, maybe you actually want the other person to be able to see how you have commented, especially if you don't want to edit this document for them. Maybe you just want to, you're an editor, or right? You're an editor or somebody actually told you to work on that document. So you can just give them the comments at every point, right? So once they click on it, they get to see the comments you have made on this and even make their corrections. Then we have you presenting. So if you're actually going to make a presentation, this is how you just have to click on this, and it allows you to, you can see, you can use it in a new meeting. Just start a new meeting and you project it. Then now Google recently added their AI into this, so you can just decide to use their Gemini AI. And since this session is not about AI, I will not talk about it. So then back in here we have the files. So on these files in here, this is very important. Now, in fact, if you don't want to learn anything about Google tools, please learn this part of this files, right? So in these files, it allows you to, maybe you want to make a copy. If you want to duplicate this document, all you need to do is make a copy. If you actually want to open other documents, maybe you have another one, maybe in your Google Drive or whatsoever, you can, remember that this is a new account. So this is not like my main Google account in here. So you decide to even upload the file in here, it's going to open it right inside this document. But this is what I want you to take note of. First is the share, right? So you can decide to click in here. We have two shares actually. So you can decide to just click with share with others. And when you are clicking on share with others, this is something people don't make a lot of mistakes on, right? So you can decide to just put email. So let me just put this email. This is my email, right? I can just decide to use this email, and it's going to highlight this email and ask me what permission do I want to give this email to. So I can just decide to give you a commenter. So all you can do on this document is you can only make comments, right? You can only make comments. And if I give you editors right, means that you can make edits. And then when I give you viewers right, it means that this email can only view this document, but they will not be able to add anything on the document, and they won't be able to do anything aside viewing the document, right? So I'll cancel this. And then another way is, let's say you want to give general access, especially when you do not have emails of these people. So all you need to do is click on this restricted. Now when you restrict it, means that when you share it to people, you will have to allow them, they will have to ask you for access to be able to use this document. So depending on how you actually, if it is a private document, I always advise that you leave it under restricted, so that you when the person requests for access, you grant them access to the document, right? So but all you need to do, you can say anyone with the link, and the moment you make this anyone with the link, and the next thing is going to ask you is, what access do you want to give them? So let's say you came in and gave them editors right. So it means that anybody who has access to the link that connects this document will be able to do anything they want to do on this document without you supervising them, because you gave them the editor's access. So but if you give them the viewer's access, it means that they can only view. And this point of anyone with the link states that they don't need to ask you for permission, right? They don't need to ask you for permission to be able to work with the document. But if you make it restricted, it means that they have to ask you to grant them access to this document before you can do so. So depending on whichever you give, and depending on the type of the document, right? It's important, the type of the document as well. Then another thing I want you to take note is, again, you can just, when you are done with the work, you can just decide to just use this, email this file but I don't always advise that. Here's what I always advise. um I advise that you download it and then maybe send it to an email, right? But you can actually email the document to them directly. Now, another thing is you must note is the download. So, Google, the beauty of Google is you can decide to use any of these formats to download your document. So, if you want this document to be in a Microsoft Word, what it means is this is a doc, not this is a doc file. So we actually have two different types of files. We have docs and we have docs. So this one actually works with Microsoft while the other one works with, so let me just increase this so you see. So we actually have the docs file and then we have the docs file. So this works with Microsoft Word. So let's say you want to download it as a Word, but you want people to be able to access this on their Microsoft. If you don't download it in this format, in this Microsoft format, if you download it on the format of docs, right? When you download it in the format of docs, please, anybody that cannot hear me has to be his network, right? It has to be your network, please. And if you have a question, please kindly keep the question till the end, unless it's relating to maybe you're not seeing my screen. And I've said it, if you're not seeing my screen, please log out and log in. You'll be able to see that sometimes it's your network, right? And likewise with the sound, because I know my voice is actually loud and clear. So now coming back in here, if you download it as a doc format, that's as this format, and you send it to somebody and the person now decides to use, maybe the person use this docs file to open the Microsoft Word under the Microsoft Word app, all the work will be scattered, right? It will be scattered. So you actually have to come in and download it in the format that works for them. So another thing is you can use the odt.odt. Usually people don't really use the open document format as much as, even me, mainly I either use the Microsoft Word, the PDF, or the web page. And this, I don't usually use most of the ones that are here. But the beauty of what um Google Docs does is it allows you to choose the format you want to work with, right? So you can decide to download it as PDF, especially maybe you want to send a proposal. Of course, I don't believe that you're going to send a proposal as a Microsoft Word, or you're going to send it in any other format aside the PDF format, right? So you would always make it a PDF document so that they will not be able to edit it. But if you grant them almost all of these access, depending on the application, they will be able to edit it, right? So you can also do the plain text. And then another thing I want you to also look at is the security limitations of this. Now, the beauty of one of the reasons I love this is that you have least access to, seeing anybody hacking. As long as your account is not being hacked, you basically will not see any security threat. So this allows you to look at how secured the document is, so that you don't put yourself prone to a lot of issues, especially if somebody is the one sharing the document with you. You'll be able to see if there are actually security issues. And then another most important thing again is the language. Now, Google allows you to change your documents into as many languages as you want to, right? So we have many languages. I don't understand any language aside English in here. So if you actually have any language that you want to use, though fine. Then another thing I forgot to talk about is you can add a shortcut to your drive. So you can decide to make this document inside of your drive. Maybe when we go to drive, I would show us what I mean by that, right? Then another thing we have is the page setup. So when you are working with documents, right, you can decide to, now let me do something. Let me just do something. Let me make this more than a page. So let me go to page. I think this should be okay. We're already in page 3. So let me go to page 2. So let me just type something in here in page 2, right? So I'm going to do something. So coming back in here, I can decide to give these pages two different things. So all I need to come to and do is on these pages in here, rather than the whole document, okay, I can decide to make this I don't know why it's just picking coming. Let me click on this now, and let me just go to page 2 and hit on. It's supposed to allow me select, or is it because I'm coming? I'm coming. All right, so let me just explain this. So but basically what I wanted to do is me telling it. I can tell Google, I can use this now and say I want this page to be in portrait mode, and I want this other one to be I want this other one to be in landscape mode. I don't know why it's not showing that, but it's telling me to apply it to the whole document. So you can decide to make it the whole document, and you're going to see that the page size has now turned. You see, it's no longer long as it was, right? It's now shorter. So but maybe when you have a lot of files, I think it allows you. I don't just know why it's not allowing me do what I want to do. So but then you can also decide to make it pageless. Now Google recently added this pageless format to make your account look endless, right? You're not actually going to see any break. Can you see that there's no break again in the page? Let me explain this. Let me come back in here and just put this on the whole document. Now can you see that there is a break in here, right? Like pages. So but right now, because we are in an era of making things pageless, right? So you can decide to make it pageless. In fact, make change the background color. Good. You can see I can decide to even change the background color and make it entirely, so there will be no line break, right? There will be no line break. Let me just make this white. Abeg, I'm not in the mood. So let me just turn it back to white and work. So you can see there are no line breaks when it comes to pageless documents, right? But when you look at this baby side, you're going to see where it's showing you the numbers of pages that we have, right? And then when you're editing just allows you to see, maybe to undo, copy and paste and all that. So and if you actually know how to work with your keyboard keys, you might not even be needing so much. Control V is to, I think Control C is to copy, Control A comma or Command A means to highlight everything, Control C means to copy. So that is just what is actually at this point, right? So I don't think that we get to use a lot of this in this life as well. So then another thing is the mode, right? So you might decide to change the mode, maybe to just give it reading mode. So when it's on reading mode, it means that even if you try to add a document, you'll not be able to edit anything. Why? Because you gave it a reading mode, right? So but usually I like to leave it on editing because I'm working on the editing, right? And then you can decide to add your ruler, right? You can decide to give it your ruler. So the ruler is usually in here. Look at the ruler here. So if you want to maybe make the document, I don't know, because it's in landscape, so you can decide to shift it, right? So this is where you get to play along with your ruler very well. And most times this doesn't really work on landscape mode, right? So um you have to actually remove it back from the pageless and go into, but you can play along with your rulers, right? Then the insert mode, this is where it allows you to add images. So if you want to add images depending on whatever source you want to use, from your drive, photos, camera, whatever source you intend to use by URL, you can add image. Then you can get to add tables in here. So if you want to add tables depending on the numbers of table, all you just need to do is click on it and it's going to give you a detailed overview of the tables, right? So if you want just the idea of playing around with your is it columns, and yeah, columns, and I can't really remember, but it's just around playing with your columns. And maybe when I remember, when we go to Excel, I will talk about it. So but you get to play with your blocks in here, and you okay, good. Rows and columns is the rows I'm forgetting. Thank you. So just the idea of playing around with your rows and column. And then you can give this a cover page. So anything that is actually new, you get to see it under the you get to see this little new on it. So this account I'm currently using is on a free mode, and that's why you see that something like e-signature is stating premium, because this is the new email account I just created. So then another thing is you can decide to add a drawing. So all you need to do is just click on this add new, and you can just add in your drawing. So usually it's going to bring down some tools that you just use, you draw whatever you want to draw and put it right into your Google Docs, right? Then we have charts. So if you want to add a bar chart, pie chart, whatever kind of chart, you can see these are charts. You can give it charts, right? I'm not really so much a math person, so I don't really do so much of working with that. Then even Google now has emojis. So if you want to walk around with your emojis, you can decide to put emojis inside, right? Then another thing is this smart chip. Now this smart chip usually is just you adding maybe a timer or whatsoever into your document, right? So this is just where you decide to add maybe a timer right inside of this box, maybe give it a timer. So but usually I work more with this smart chip better in Excel or in the Google Sheets um over the Google Docs. And then we have document drop down. So you can decide to, let's say I want to do this, I want to say team 1. So most of these things are new, right? So I can decide to give it a color and say 1, 2, maybe 3 and 4. Then I can decide to give it different colors just to be able to know which colors I'm working with, right? And I'm going to show you what this does. So you can add, you can delete. So if you want to add more, you add. If you want to delete, you delete. So here is what it's going to do. So if I want to work with team 2, all I just need to do is select this. If I want to work with this, I work with this. So that is just even the idea of the smart chip. That's how it works, right? That's how it works. Then another thing is is the tabs, most importantly again. So there's a way where Google now allows you, the Google Docs allows you to work in terms of tabs. So the tabs are right in here. There are times where I'm working, let's say I'm working on a campaign for a brand, right? And then this is, let's say this campaign in here has to do with marketing, and then this has to do with sales, and then this has to do with leads. So rather than doing marketing, sales and leads in the same document, I can put them in terms of tabs. So when you click on marketing, you see all the documents on marketing. Just the idea of how web design works, right? Switching across tabs. When you come to sales, you're going to see everything you wrote inside of sales, right? Everything you wrote inside of sales. And the same thing has to do with leads. Everything you wrote inside of leads. So all you just need to do is switch in between tabs to work with it, right? And then another thing is document. I think that is most importantly in here. Okay, then another thing is having table of content. So table of contents are just um table of contents are the numbers you get to add in your document. So um back then the table of contents used to, just stay somewhere around here, but Google always do a lot of, changes. So but all you just need to do is, let's say you're working on a book, you can just decide to give it just your own table of contents in here, right? So then you just give it a name and you are good to go. So then another thing is format just has to do with the types of content you write. So in here we have text. So basically you can decide to make this bold, and look at it here, you have this ribbon that does the job for you. Command B or Control B is actually, oh sorry, is actually you, sorry, it's just actually you bolding this, making it more darker, right? Or better still, you click on this part, all you need to do is highlight and click on it. So if I highlight on this and click on bold, you can see that it's now bold. So that is actually what this format does to you, right? I'm coming, format. So you can make it, you can utilize it, you can underline it, you can decide to change the color, right? Here in here you can use the highlighter, so you are giving it a background color. So and then again in here you can decide to make it have a link and you apply it, right? So you make this a link, right? And then you can decide to add comments. Here you can decide to add an image. So these are just shortcuts to what we actually saw previously. You can decide to push this to the middle, push it to the end, or make it stand accordingly on the same line. So just the rule of line of playing with your lines, right? So you can decide to make it, shift it, add space, make it single, whatsoever thing you want to do. In here allows you to give it a format. You can see I can just decide to make it have this for reference, or I can decide to say no, I want this to be alone on its own. And then here allows you to work with numbers, right? It allows you to work with numbers, and the beauty is it gives you different formats. So you can decide to say in capital letters, you can decide to say in small letters and the rest. And the same way too in here, it gives you different styles that you can make use of, right? So that is actually what it does in the idea of format. So all these things you are seeing here in format, this is the shortcut of it, right? Then another thing I forgot to add is you can decide to make this a title. So the moment you make this a title, it will give it a body of title inside of this marketing. So what it's trying to tell you is that in marketing, it will highlight all the numbers of titles you have, right? If you still make this a title, you're going to see it like this, right? If you decide to come in here and make this a heading, so you can see, so you just play around your sizes. In this case, that's just what it does for you. You play around your sizes, and then this allows you to play with your font. So whatever font you want to actually make use of in your document, this allows you to play with it, right? And then another thing is your spelling. So you can just come in here and say, I always like to turn this on, so it tells me when I'm making mistakes, right? So these tools are just to help you with spellings, just basic tools to help you. And the beauty of Google now is it allows you to even do translate documents. So you can decide to translate a document from English to another language, right? And send it to whoever you are sending. And then we have extensions. So Google now allows you to add extensions into your document. So, but for the focus of this class, you don't need so much as you need all of this. So this is just a simple rundown of how to actually use your Google Docs. So whether you're a virtual assistant that needs to, work across documents, that's just the basic tools you need to work with it. It's not rocket science. I think for me, I just feel that is all that you need to know.